Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Talking About the Big Stuff podcast with Michael Cole and Matthew Cravat. I am Michael Cole.
And I am Matthew Cravat.
Today's episode is about a wonderful topic. I think we're far enough away now from 4th of July that I think it's comfortable to do this topic. And by the time this goes out, it should be at least a month, because this is next week's episode. We are going to talk today about patriotism and nationalism. And before I dive in, do you have any opening thoughts that you'd like to?
Yeah, in the circles in which I run, it's rare that I hear the word nationalism without white Christian put in front of it.
Yeah.
But that's usually the nationalism I'm concerned about.
Yeah, and that's the brand that we are at the moment most often dealing with. I actually don't even know that I can name a non-white Christian brand of nationalism in America that is in any way prominent right now.
Yeah. I know though a lot of the pundits that of my world go out of their way to make sure to say white Christian each time to point out that let's not overlook where the problems are.
Right.
And for the majority, I mean, because I'm sure there's there are Proud Boys who are not white, but they would quickly find, I think, if they had the world they wanted, they would be next in the list. Like, now that we're in power, don't need you anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
But patriotism.
The reason I wanted to
junior.
Right. Well, the reason I wanted to link these two, I think you can be patriotic in a non-problematic way.
I think you can.
So the reason that I wanted to link the two is I think they are in the United States, at least, they're inextricably linked. Not to say that you can be patriotic and not nationalistic, or vice versa, but like you can't talk about one and not talk about the other, really.
The trappings are the same.
Yeah,
overlap.
I like to think of patriotism is to nationalism as having a big dick is to saying you have a big dick. And usually,
I thought you were going to say being a big dick.
No. And usually, both of those things are expressed through how you decorate your truck. So,
fair.
I think that's my little quote for the episode. That'll be the thing I'll put out there, and we'll see a bunch of I actually do have a big dick, and my truck nuts show it. My big pipe smokestacks and my Confederate flag.
I hate to tell you, when you bought that truck, it didn't come with truck nuts. If you attached it, that's a trans truck now. So I'm sure.
Yeah. So anyway, I think the reason why a big reason why I think that it's an important topic is we on the left get accused of not being patriotic a lot, and I think part of that is that we don't wrap ourselves in patriotism as an identity. We tend to be patriotism can show up in a lot of ways, but the way that people, it's like if you have a big dick, Matthew, I have zero idea about it because you've never talked about it and I've never seen it, but it doesn't mean you don't have a big dick. Whereas if you started being like, I have a big dick, I'd be like, does he really have a big dick?
You still don't know. But
right. But I would doubt more than, like, right now, your dick could be 1 inch, it could be 90 inches, and I wouldn't have any.
I'll tell you the mantra. My dick is so large, my dick is so large, I can't fucking believe my dick is so large. Like an Amtrak train running from here to Maine.
Nice.
Now you know.
Nice. But the point being, it's one of those things that if you talk, the more you talk about it, the less it seems to be true. And I'm not saying that there aren't people who talk about patriotism who aren't genuinely patriotic and not a problem, but we on the left just don't go around advertising patriotism.
I know I'm lesser educated than you with my bachelor's in English and your master's, but I think it boils down to the old show don't tell.
Yeah.
Which also works for dicks, shower not grower. But
I'm a grower, so I don't love that. But
so yeah, but you have that You can.
I'm actually neither a shower or a grower, so thanks a lot.
I'm an innie. Um,
I have an
so
acorn dick.
you could be president, um, and then go to jail. But I think it's like you can show your patriotism without ever saying your patriotism.
Yeah, yeah, and how you show your patriotism. Like, there's a lot of ways. And
Mostly, it's watching the Olympics, as far as I can tell.
I was gonna say I'll have a hard time coming up with the ways that I think are patriotic that I don't necessarily subscribe to. But like, I think the idea, the big thing that's brought up a lot, and I'm sure you hear it all, a decent amount, is conservatives saying that, like, we don't love this country because we want to change this country, while also they want to change the country. Like, and that's
Their slogan is "Make America Great Again."
right, right.
Literally change the country.
And even before that, though, it was like, well, I think, we need to make this policy and change this and change that. And it's like, how come when you want to make the change, it's
Because
and we don't
for them,
accuse them.
America is the America in their imagination, not one
Yeah,
that it has ever or will ever exist.
right.
So changing the current one is to get to the ideal that's in their head.
Yeah, but ultimately, like, I mean, the whole concept. I mean, I grew up hearing a decent amount of people saying, if you don't like this country, go somewhere else. And
Love
it's
it
like,
or leave it, man.
that's not how it works. If you're, what's your what sports team do you enjoy that is the worst of your sports team, like worst statistically?
Because my brother is making a career of being a YouTuber dedicated to the New York Jets, I've been kind of forced into liking the Jets. And they
Okay,
suck.
yeah,
They may be
and
good next year, actually, because they're getting vaccine denier wacko head Aaron Rodgers to be the quarterback. So they kind of brought in a ringer for one last season, kind of thing.
yeah, the atheist with that we want to be associated with, maybe not the least, but the least in sports. Um, but yeah, the idea is, if you love a sports team, that kind of sucks, or even if you love a sports team that's
Well, I mean,
just
I've been a
going through
Yankee
a
fan my entire life, so I've
yeah
been like World Series after World Series with World Series, and then basement, basement, basement. I've lived in both
yeah
worlds
yeah. If you when you're going through a rebuilding year or just a crappy
there, a
year,
decade.
you don't want to just sit there and not make any changes. You want to, like, oh, well, maybe you get Aaron Rodgers, or, I know the Yankees wouldn't get Aaron Rodgers. I understand the difference between baseball and football. It's
Because you
one of the
listen to
few
George Carlin, that's
one
why
of
you
the
know the difference.
one of the few sports things that I understand.
Baseball is played in a park. Football is
Yeah,
played in a stadium,
yeah.
and that's the
But
difference.
that idea has always seemed surprising to me, that people just can't. And I think it's not that they can't. I think it is typically disingenuous. Like, I get it. I want to change it, and you want to change it in a way that I don't like. So therefore, you are unpatriotic. And I'm sure there are, in the last 5 to 10 years, the left has started using that as an attack on the right. Like, we've started matching that energy to, not nearly level wise, but we've started doing that with, calling people unpatriotic on the right, and
More
you know,
un-American than unpatriotic.
yeah,
I think that's. I mean, because there's a difference. I think,
yeah.
and now I was going to say the things they are doing are patently un-American. They're against the First Amendment. They're against
Yeah,
the spirit of America.
right. And I'm not even talking about, like, January 6th stuff, which I think obviously is its own.
What's January 6th stuff?
Uh, you know, it's 6 days after New Year's, and it's or 5 days after New Year's, and
The hangover stuff.
people are just finishing with their hangover, and yeah. But I think that, like, we've been seeing some people push back on that, and I've actually I've tried to call it out a couple times when I've witnessed the conservatives doing it to us. I've said to family members and stuff, like, why is it when you want to change everything? And it's like, well, because we come from a place of wanting to improve this thing that we think is really great but could be better, and liberals want to fix a thing that they see as inherently broken. That's the answer. And if you believe that, I think that is a fair argument. I don't believe that to be true, but I think that if you actually do believe it, it makes more sense than anything else I've heard.
Well, I mean, it goes through the descriptive words of the two sides, right? Conservatives want to be conservative, go back to the way things were, even if they never really were that way. The imagination of what they think things were.
Right.
Progressives want to progress and make things better.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
And if you talk about Christian, white Christian nationalists, well, Christianity's on a decline. White is on a decline percentage wise as marginalized groups become greater in number. So going backwards is better for them. Like they're losing their position of privilege and power, or you are, every single day. Um, and it's one of the things like, I don't know if we've done a topic on what do you do when you disagree with your own side, especially in social media. It's
Oh,
different.
I would love to do that as an episode because,
But like one of the memes I see a lot of times is like a picture of a pie showing different groups, and it says like equality is not a pie. That more for someone else doesn't mean less for you. And I always want to say no, it 100% is a pie, and it 100% does mean less rights. I mean, if right now a white Christian male has a huge advantage in getting a job because of bigotry, and in 20 years that advantage goes away because there's less bigotry, their pie got smaller. I mean, they're not wrong to think that it's going to hurt them in the long run, even if it's them going back to the mean of being the same as everyone else. Right now, they have an advantage. So losing that advantage does mean a smaller piece of pie, but they don't deserve a bigger piece of pie, is the point.
right, right. They're gorging themselves. I think it's something that I think we should definitely do is that episode about how to handle, because I come across it quite a bit, or I used to when I have been a lot, you know that I quit Facebook the year of the election, so 2020. I quit Facebook about a month before the election because it was getting so toxic. But I get into a lot of fights on with conservatives, and then I started to get into fights with liberals who were making bad arguments. And I'm like, we need to be making the best arguments possible, and this is a bad argument. And but I also, on the same side, like what I was just saying about they think that they come to it from a place of this is a great country that I want to improve, and they think we come to it as this is a flawed, broken country that we need to fix, that's inherently broken. That's me trying to steelman their argument because I don't want to, like
Yeah.
I want to have the best possible thought on these things, and I don't want to be dealing with straw men. And so that, I think that we need to do that on both sides, and I'm trying to strong man them while, or what is steel man, that's what they call it, steel man their argument while.
Or steel bot, so do it as a robot instead of a sexist gendered man.
Okay, I have not heard that
That
phrase
that
before.
started on the Philosophers in Space podcast. Since it's a science fiction podcast, they were like, instead of using men and women, maybe we should use something gender neutral like a robot. So
Yeah,
steel bot or straw bot.
nice. Yeah, no, I hadn't heard that, but then
Yeah. It's fun because they started on that podcast, but it's leaked over to other related podcasts, but without ever a definition. So like someone who doesn't listen to Philosophers in Space, be like, what are they talking about? I never heard of that. Like, yeah, like I never heard of that expression.
yeah,
It came from one particular podcast.
yeah. We need to get a second podcast so we can just start using these jokes on that podcast, and then people are like, wait a second,
So
why the
anyway,
fuck why does Mike's dad hate Matthew? So anyway, uh, yes, but so I
yeah, so and I think there's a lot of the conservative idea of freedom is I am free to have things the way I want them and tell you what to do, and you are not free to do that. And that because then you'd be telling me what to do, and that would be wrong. But
right,
it's okay for them to do it because that's the position they're coming from. Like it's not hypocritical. It's not thinking you don't have a right to tell me what to do, but I have a right to tell you what to do, and that's a hypocrite. They'll think, no, that's a perfect statement. Like I'm a parent and you're a child, you don't have the right to tell me what to do, and that's their view of America. They
yep,
should be in a position to tell everyone else how to live and what to do, what books. Like for them to ban books from the library is fine, but for you to cancel someone is wrong because banning is fine and canceling is wrong. And it's just like you put a word that's synonyms and just where did you use them?
yeah. Although they tend to deny that they're banning books. We're just like I mean, there is
We
a lot of
just don't
semantic.
want them in a place where we think it's age appropriate. So you're banning it from that place. No, we just don't want it to be there.
We're
That,
just
that's
enforcing that it
banning.
not be. Yeah,
That's what it means.
yeah,
And then they'll say they can always go to a public library. It's like, yeah, you're banning it there too. Like it's books, same books are being banned in public libraries in small places. So like their argument falls apart when you pull back, as usual. Damn
yeah,
white Christian nationalists.
yep,
They're not patriotic because they don't believe in free speech and free expression.
yeah. And I mean, religious. I mean, religious freedom being part of that First Amendment.
Yep.
So
You got to have freedom from religion if you want to have freedom of religion. You can't have one religion telling other people to follow their rules.
yeah, yeah. Well, then I think we're done.
We've
So
solved that problem.
we've,
But I have trouble defining why you should be patriotic.
yeah, that's about where I was about to go.
Yeah.
Was look, if you're
Other
not,
than I happen to live here.
yeah, eh, yeah. Well, I was gonna say something about the like we should no matter what society we live in, we should be trying to improve it. We should be trying to make it better. We're never going to achieve perfection, so we should be always be able to try to go forward. If I'm in America and in some in the next 50 years that I'm alive, at some point if we vote to make America and Canada and Mexico all merge into one country and we change the name, it's no long and we change the form of government, but we do it democratically. Like then
Why would we change the name? It's still America. Still the United States of America.
yeah, you know what I'm
I
saying.
mean,
But like if we came
was
up
that
with if we were like
it's North America and Mexico is actually the United States of Mexico. So like
yeah,
combining the name still stays the same.
well maybe we call it like balls to the walls America or something. I don't know, like something like just
We're just North America because
just my point being like if we change so that we're no longer the United States of America and like then it doesn't really if the government has always been changing, it is not the same as it was the it geographically largely
America's
govern
footprint changes.
yeah governmentally. I know that like the basic structure is the same, but we've had amendments. Like we're still not
So the
still
law
operating on
changes daily.
yeah
New laws are passed every day.
yeah. And so like this country is not the same country as it was when I was born or when you were born or the day that they signed the deck. Well, I'll say the day that they ratified the Constitution. Um, so, hey, I'm aware of all these things, but for shorthand, it's
Yeah.
easier to just say the Declaration of
Say the
Independence.
wrong stuff.
Yeah, it is easier to be wrong because I'm patriotic, and that's an American right to be wrong.
Freedom of expression.
It's our
I have a
right to be
sincerely
wrong.
held belief.
That might be the most American sentence ever. But I don't have any, and I also like don't like I get that there's a whole bunch of biblical reasons why people don't want like one world government, but like if we just think about I don't know much about Star Trek, so correct me if I'm wrong here, but like I know that there's lots of sci-fi in which the world just comes together and forms basically a
I mean,
utopian society.
all like almost all um, like non-dystopian future, like the positive utopian type futures are always
Yeah,
Earth is the government because that makes sense. Why would you have?
yeah,
Or even Star Trek goes further because Star Trek, Earth's part of the United Federation of Planets. I mean,
yeah,
it's part of a democratic kind of United States, but each one's a planet.
yeah. And the idea of that doesn't bother me at all, and I don't think I I don't feel like that's specifically non-patriotic. It's just devoid. It's separate. It's not it's not patriotic or
Yeah,
it's a
I look at it
patriotic.
like North Carolina barbecue.
Yeah,
There's one North Carolina, but Eastern style barbecue is very different than Western style barbecue. They have different barbecue cultures, and that's fine. So you can
yeah,
still have pride in your local culture without having a different governmental sovereign, border
yeah,
around it.
yeah.
But Eastern's better. Just saying.
I don't know the difference. I've had barbecue here. I don't know. I've had it in Winston Salem. So go ahead,
So
keep going.
so So North Carolina barbecue is either whole hog or pork shoulder, um, slow smoked, and sometimes it's chopped. But more correctly, it should be pulled pork, which means you actually with your fingers pull the pork into small pieces. When you're lucky, you're at a picking, pulling it directly off the carcass on the smoker. Eastern style is made generally with apple cider vinegar. Vinegar is the important part, but it's almost always apple cider vinegar, red pepper, and then variety of spices and herbs. That whatever your particular recipe is.
That's what I've
Western
had.
style adds like a ketchup base to that or a tomato base to that, just a little, not as ketchupy as Hunt's or Heinz, from a bottle that you would get
Yeah.
that's just barbecue, but going towards that direction. And so that grew out of the Eastern style. And then when it got to like Kansas City, they went sweet and sour, and vinegar
Mhm.
went way down, and the tomato went up, and that's the more general buy it from a grocery store style.
Gotcha.
But and then in the middle of the state, near Winston Salem, the town of Lexington is world famous for their North Carolina barbecue. And there's this kind of a blend. It's got some of the tomato base, but not as tomatoey as further west.
Yeah.
And,
And which
I,
one do you like best?
I mostly like Eastern style, but that's mostly because we're here and that's where we are. We're on the
Mhm.
Eastern side, and that's what I'm most attuned to having most often. When I've had Western style, I have liked it just fine. I just don't got on my way to find it, versus what I've gotten used to eating since 1987.
And what do you think about South Carolina barbecue?
Oh, mustard is disgusting to be put in barbecue. I don't know why they do
I don't know anything about it. I just know that one time Colbert was talking about, because he's from South Carolina, he was talking about somebody that was North Carolina, and they were fighting about it.
Yeah, they use mustard in their sauce. Like you see those mine's in grocery stores, Carolina Gold barbecue
Hmm.
sauce, and it's yellow, and it's because this mustard-based sauce.
I like
It's,
mustard, and I don't know. So like
I do.
I
I like mustard, but I like it on particular things.
yeah.
It's a little. It can be overpowering, and have a whole barbecue sauce full of it is a bit overpowering.
Oh, nice. Okay. Why are you so anti barbecue?
Only the damn South Carolinians, man.
Yeah.
North Carolina barbecue
No.
is the shiznit.
No, I am very patriotic to barbecue, and because yeah, can it be improved? Of course, but it is still the best barbecue on the face of this fucking earth that has ever existed in all of history. And if you say anything against it, I will
We'll go to
disagree
war.
with you and potentially harm you. Barbecue, BBQ, BBQ.
Yeah, the thing is, I'm for a one world barbecue government with different barbecues from around the world. I love every barbecue except for Alabama's mayonnaise based barbecue and South Carolina's mustard based. And I haven't really had the
Yeah,
Alabama one, just knowing it exists.
right.
But like you go to Texas and it's beef brisket, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
You go to St. Louis and they're more about the ribs and stuff, and that's amazing. I like a Korean barbecue; it's amazing.
Yeah. No, I know. I was doing a thing.
I know
Uh
you're doing your thing. I'm saying I'm doing my thing also. You can have one world barbecue, but still have the
yeah.
cultural differences and the pride of
Yeah,
your region without government interference. I'm telling you, one barbecue has to be the barbecue, and it has to be the way it was when I grew up.
absolutely. And I I I see why we can't right now have one world government, and I'm not, and I wouldn't even necessarily like fight for it, but I think that like the idea of it being scary is weird to me
It
as a
seems like the natural
concept.
outcome if we don't destroy ourselves, if we keep
Yeah.
working towards more mutual working together
Hmm.
and being a society. I mean, it's happening in Europe, right? I mean, the European Union is
Yeah.
becoming that ish.
Yeah.
But still, with each country having its own culture and its own thing, like it hasn't
Right.
hurt any of the member countries to be part of a greater governmental union.
And as telecommunications increase, we're all going to be more and more compatible as far as language. Like if you look at the history of language, typically has a 500-year half life um, before one language becomes a new language. So we are basically a different language from Shakespearean English. Like that would be Old English, or that's not. And then there is a thing called Old English,
Sure,
but
yeah.
it would be a separate category of English than what we speak right now. However, if you look at the last 100 years, because of telecommunications, like if that hadn't happened, our English and British English would be basically different languages by now.
Well, if you look at France and Canada and with French, so
Hmm.
Quebecois, what they speak in Quebec, it sounds almost like Shakespeare to a French person. Like
Yeah,
it's like they locked into the 1800s version of French that they brought over, and it hasn't really changed. While in
yeah,
France, the language has continued to evolve and change.
yeah.
So
Sarah
the
speaks.
Canadians sound stilted to a French
Yeah,
person.
Sarah speaks Canadian French, and Sarah speaks like Canadian French, and she said that she would be nervous speaking it in France because they call it pig French, um, and so like yeah, but like the point being like language, due to telecommunications, we have changed the way the that society evolves like
Language of
drastically.
virus.
In some things we've sped up, and in other things we've slowed down. Like linguistic differences, the formation of new languages. Because, like I said, we've had about 130 years of telecommunications to some extent, uh, and well, maybe 115. I guess with recordings and stuff, audio recordings have existed for about 130, and we've had telephones for 150. Nice. For listeners, Matthew's cat just appeared in frame. Um, but because of that, we've changed we've changed our the way that the sociology, not sociology, yeah, sociology of how we've all evolved and continue to evolve. And so, in doing so, it's not unimaginable that if we can get over some of these squabbles that we have, whether it be religious differences or cultural differences that have plagued humanity and created wars and conflict, if we can get through those, if we can just listen to Tim Minchin and you don't eat pork, we don't eat pork, let's not
Let's
eat
not
pork
eat pork
together.
together.
Like if we can just get past that, like we've never had as good of a chance at connecting as a species as we do right now because of all this technology.
Just look
However,
at how the neo Nazis have had a resurgence because they have the technology to connect with each other.
yeah, that's true. But
It's
but
the dark side of everything that has a light side.
yeah, no,
Always
and I'm
true to
aware of
us.
that. But my point being, like, it has changed. The idea of trying to create one world government 300 years ago. I mean, other than the fact that England
They
ruled
tried to take
everything.
over the world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Well, before, one world government meant one government taking over the rest. Genghis
yes,
Khan taking over all of Asia. England, son never
yeah.
setting on the empire. Now it means a coming together in union.
Do I have to censor out cat butthole if it goes by the screen?
I don't know, my cat turned on my video. Turn off my video. Start recording the screen. It's a gaming laptop, so you hit the
Oh,
video button.
nice.
He's trying to film what's going on.
So anyway, my point being, like, I don't understand how that's not. Again, it's not that it's patriotic. It's just a patriotic, and it doesn't have
Well, if your view of patriotism is my country has to be the best, then it's hard for your country to merge with another one in any way because then who are you being best over?
right. Yeah.
But it's also one of
Um.
those things that the more you travel and the more you know other countries, you realize, well, there's there's nothing you can list, except for maybe murders, but gun violence, where that we're number one at. Say, well, America's the best. Well, if that's your criteria, you have to be the best to be patriotic. What are we the best at? This country's a better education system. Countries with more freedoms than we have. Countries with, you know,
Yeah.
more styles. Like the French have so many more styles of cheese. I mean, come on.
We might be the number one in patriotism, though.
Yeah, patriotism and gun murders. Like
Yeah.
guns and patriotism. Those are woohoo.
Yeah. I do know that, like, they do report every year or so. You hear different reports about the number of people that are self-identifying as patriotic has gone down, and I want to, and to some extent I think that it isn't that that's really true from my you know personal experience, which is anecdotal, I get, but I think that it's more likely that the the way we look at patriotism is changing, and so you might be the exact same level of patriotic that you were 30 years ago, but because patriotism is bleeding together with nationalism, and you're like, well, I'm not that.
I won't
And
say
so
I
because
won't
you're self-reporting,
self-identify.
yeah,
Yeah, like
and
I used to like wear a flag lapel pin, like 2001. Everyone did.
yeah,
Now I feel like that's a statement saying I'm a racist if I wear a flag lapel pin, because that's the people who
right,
proudly display that they kind of stolen the flag from the rest of us.
yeah, and I think that is that's part of the problem. I also think as they never when they talk about that those that number that seems to be changing every year into the less patriotic self-reporting. Those people who are reporting as patriotic are likely their level of patriotism is increasing. Like let's say you're one of those people who's like, yes, I am patriotic. It's like, yeah, and that's where we're getting into nationalism with this is
Like
the
the same
best
kind of thing
country
with
on earth.
less
Fuck
people
you if you don't think
are
so.
less people are saying that they're Christian now, but people are getting more rabidly Christian who are Christian because they
Right.
feel that back to the wall
Right.
situation.
Yeah. Um, have you seen any of the backlash against the Barbie movie?
Uh, yes, in a roundabout way. I've seen
Okay.
people talking about the backlash, and I've seen screenshots. I have not
Hmm.
gone down the rabbit hole of reading the comments pages.
Yeah, I haven't seen the movie, so I will not be spoiling much of anything for you. But I did see some videos
I'm
today.
not going to go see it, man. I'm a dude. What are you talking
No,
about?
I absolutely want to go see it, but I just didn't have the time.
My wife and
And
daughter are going tomorrow while I'm at work, so I
nice,
will see it when it streams.
yeah. No, I absolutely want to see it, and I've heard it's great. But the big thing that I keep hearing is that it's communist. It's trans and it's communist, which I haven't heard. I haven't heard any details
Wow,
to explain the
that's a
trans
weird
part.
combination.
But then the communist thing they keep explaining. So one thing was there's a map of the world.
For the dotted line.
You saw the dotted line clip,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they're talking about how it's communist because they're appealing to China and how China, um, claims to have was it the South
How much of
Asian.
China claims the South Sea is the China
Yeah,
Sea is theirs and their
yeah,
territory?
right.
But
And so
ironically, there's like 3 or 4 other dotted lines that are randomly placed around the map, and nobody cares about those because nobody
yeah,
can
yeah,
assign a meaning to those.
and the amount of dots isn't the same because China uses 9 and the movie uses 8. But the point was they were saying like, oh, they're just appealing to China, to their communist overlords so that they can make more money. And it's like,
Which is that's very communist wanting to make more money.
yes, yeah, me us wanting to
Yeah.
to
I
and
mean,
and
it's certainly true that Disney tries to be careful not to offend China, because when they do offend China, they don't make money there. They can't show the
sure,
movies there.
yeah,
So that
no,
does happen.
that
But
is
that's not a
absolutely.
political statement. That's a capitalist statement.
That's exactly what I was going to get to. Is
Yeah.
it's I get it that we tend to have an adversarial relationship with China, and I understand that there is a lot there that is legitimate. What do you call it? Conflict, but to claim that because they are communist and we are trying to get their money, it's like it's the most capitalist shit in the world to be like, oh, you don't want you don't want Buzz Lightyear's partner to kiss her wife for quarter of a second on screen. We'll cut that out so that if you guys will keep buying, like that is exactly like the Bud Light shit, like that.
It's the opposite of being woke. Like
Yeah,
we're not going to take a stand. We'd rather
right.
make the money.
Yeah, and I do have a problem when they do that, but like it's capitalist, and to call it communist, and that is the same. It's the same group that's calling this capitalist move communism that are saying none of us are patriotic because we don't want to just accept the country the exact way it is right now, and that we recognize that we have had some horrible history, not
But no,
not that our history as a whole is horrible, but that we've had like they won't. It used to be you couldn't paint it as our history was horrible as a whole, and now as we cut into teaching about slavery, or and all and everything else that we're trying to teach about U.S. history, or we're trying not to teach about U.S. history. We it's no You can no longer acknowledge that there was ever anything wrong ever about the United States, and that is, to me, that feels like that's, and I get it's nationalism, but it also feels like that nationalism at the level of, even though you're masking it as super patriotism, it's anti-patriotism.
It's just jingoism. It's not.
Yeah, jingoism. Yeah, I didn't mean to whack the mic.
Don't whack during the podcast. Wait until after the podcast. You can whack all you like.
Yeah. So anyway, that's basically all my thoughts on nationalism and patriotism. We actually stayed relatively on topic. Do you have any big points you want to make, and anything left that you want to say?
No, nothing other than I'd like to get back to the point where we can be openly patriotic again without it looking like nationalism. I would like to put a big American flag outside my house, but I don't do it because people might think I'm the Trumper across the street.
Well, you just got to put it next to a trans ally flag or trans LGBT flag.
But trans colors around the fringe.
Hmm.
I have a fringe. People will think that I'm a sovereign citizen. There's a fringe on my flag.
I actually think, and maybe we can start this movement. So I recently saw a meme where the flag code doesn't say how you have to place the stars and stripes. Like you can as long as the percentages are the same, you can make your flag however you want it.
So the stars on the field of blue don't have to be in the order they typically are.
Yeah, and the blue stripes, you can have all the blue stripes, then all the red.
There are no blue stripes.
Oh,
I don't know if you've seen the flag, but there are. I know you can't picture it in your head, but there are no blue stripes. There are 14 red and white stripes for the colonies.
I'm finding the meme. It might take me a minute, but basically it was they, instead of the blue fields in a square, you don't even have to keep it as a square. You can make that into a rectangular stripe in the middle, and then you have white on one side, red on one side, and it's the amount of the stripes, mashed up. And then I forget where the stars are sprinkled throughout. If we made that, because it's not it's technically a valid U.S. flag based on flag code, maybe that's the patriotic, not nationalist flag that we need.
But it's interesting is, and another thing, like some people don't know they're doing this, and some people do. If you drive around and you see the 1776 flag, like the 13 colonies kind of in a circle version of the flag, some people might have that because they remember the bicentennial in 1976 and it was popular, and they think it's a cool, patriotic thing. But a lot of nationalists use it as a dog whistle for we should go back to the days when there was slavery and only white men had power, and the whole ultimate conservative move would be to go back to what it was then.
Yeah.
I'm obligated to point out the U.S. flag code does not specify where the blue field is placed, how thick the stripes are, or what shade the colors of everything is. So this is 100% code compliant American flag. And it's really weird because on camera it looks like it's moving.
But maybe that's the thing we need, is to make that the flag of the people who want to differentiate from nationalists.
Maybe it's not the flag we need, but it's the flag we deserve.
Yeah. And because I think that ultimately there is a lot of patriotism that is being, because patriots, it's just like back to the boastfulness part of it. Like patriotism is so many things, and very few of them are showboating. Now, I like the Pledge of Allegiance. I actually think the Pledge of Allegiance is really kind of a weird concept.
It's very fascist. Get up every morning and swear allegiance over and over again with words you don't even understand. Just
to the flag. I also think
to the symbol, not to the country. Well,
I do want to,
and the republic.
I just thought of another talk. So I have a friend. I'm 99% sure that he doesn't listen to this podcast, but him and I have some very different opinions on patriotism. And a lot of that be because of Kaepernick. So his father is a veteran. So you think about Kaepernick and other people who are kneeling, and we get into all, I've gotten into that conversation with a lot of people, and so ultimately I had to make it I had to explain. So he's like, the disrespect for the flag is a big part of this issue. And I don't know that that makes you a nationalist. I don't think he's a nationalist. I think he's a really good person who just, I disagree with his opinion on this. So I don't want to like portray him as such. But for the flag issue, um, it was disrespectful of the to the flag, and we pledge allegiance to the flag, and to me, flag is the symbol. And so when you think about specifically Black Lives Matter and kneeling for people who are being killed because the system of the United States system is not properly growing to or adjusting to solve these problems. The flag the flag is the symbol, and to me, I use the metaphor with him of Sarah loves her engagement ring more than almost any other object that she has, maybe more than any other object that she has in this world. But it is a symbol of my love for her and our love for each other. And if I needed her to melt that ring to create a valve to fix my heart, I don't doubt that she would do it in a minute, even though it's her favorite thing in the world, because the symbol can't be greater than the thing that it's a symbol for. And in the United States, largely, I think there's a big problem with people thinking that the flag, which is the symbol, is greater than the thing it's supposed to represent. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of going through the motions, right?
Yeah,
It's like the saying, "My dick is big." I have to
yeah,
respect the flag because that's how I, rather than it being how you show your patriotism, it is your patriotism.
right. Yeah. So that was my final thought on it. Um, so,
I mean, and I think it's funny that what the most American thing in the world is what our founding fathers, for as good or as bad as they were, they built a constitution. And the first thing they did was say, let's make 10 amendments to show you this is a living document that
mhm,
should grow and should be amended. That's how it's designed.
yeah,
And then the conservative view is nothing should change ever. It's like we started with the open ended document saying things should change always.
yeah,
There's nothing more American than changing America for the better as you go along.
yeah, yeah. I don't have anything else. So
You know, all I have to say is it's important to talk about the big stuff ism.
I was gonna do a quick promo for our Patreon and shit.
Yeah, you can
I
order this however you want. Cut it up,
Yeah,
move it around.
fuck it. We'll leave the big
Big
our
stuff
big
ism.
stuff.
Ism.
Big stuffism. Do we have big stuff, or are we just declaring that we have big stuff?
I don't know. I'd like to talk about the big stuff.
Yeah.
Ism.
For our listeners, thank you for listening to this episode. If you have the desire to support us, there's a few ways you can do that. One of them is to go on to however you're consuming this, whether it's Spotify, Apple, YouTube. Give us a subscribe, a review if possible, like it, depending on which platform. Anything like that will help us to reach a broader audience. If you want to help us monetarily, you can help us for as little as $3 a month, which is less than $1 an episode. We tend to do 4 episodes a month, but on certain special months when we have 5 weeks, we do 5 episodes. So you're getting for less than $1 an episode, and that would help us to keep improving. So I think that realistically, once I'm done editing this episode, you're going to see that this is the best audio quality of any of our episodes. Last week was the best episode before this, and we're going to slowly just keep getting better. I think that we are getting into a rapport. We've been getting a lot more guests. A lot of this support will help us to grow in ways that I think will make us better for you. So that's my pitch for that. You can follow us on Instagram or Threads at Talking About the Big Stuff. You can find us on YouTube at Talking About the Big Stuff. Instagram and Threads, we're going to have a little more content. We interact a little bit more, so it's stuff that's separate from the podcast. However, YouTube will basically just be clips and whole episodes if you're listening, if you want to watch. So I think that is it. I'm going to just buy another second or so while Matthew coughs, and then I think we will be good to close it out. Thanks.
Sold me out. I muted and everything.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, everybody, for talking with us about our big stuff. The preceding podcast has been a Chocolate Diamond Media LLC production. Copyright 2023, all rights reserved.